sure we are recording. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. First of all, I want to thank all of you who have done your wall videos on the wall bio, the Sparks, Adobe Sparks videos. It's helped me so much more to get to know some of you and your personalities. So I'm so grateful that you guys have done this. This is also a great way for you to incorporate in your future classes, especially right now with everything going on. We don't know. We can, be virtual for a short period of time and then go back into classroom and then back virtual, whichever it is, but you want to incorporate technology as much as you can to really make those connections with your students. And then think about even helping your students create videos like this for even an open house that they could show their parents. So thank you for doing that. Let me go on in here. So this is how there's the sections. What I usually do is when I start lectures, I always start with a scripture. So for this one here is, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I always like to start very positive, especially with everything that's going on. It's always important to stay positive. So what are our plans for this class? What are our plans for your future here? So here is what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be talking about, the field experience, your participation points, assignments, and then we're going to go into the lecture. So it's a lot to go through. I want to make sure that we have as much as we can within this whole time that I have you. And whatever I don't cover, I will put this recording, either your recording or the 4 o'clock recording, on the announcements. But whatever I don't cover, I will also make an additional video and put it on in the announcements as well, so that you get all your information. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into our first part, participation. So this here is what was just asked, what counts for participation? So I want to go ahead and go over this again. DQs, you have 2 DQs a week. Those do not count for participations. You just have to do them. They have their own specific points, okay? But replying to a classmate's DQ, that's what counts for participation. And those have to be, in order for it to count, it's not just replying to a classmate and saying, oh, I really like what you said, I agree with you, and you just restate everything that they just said. That won't count. You need to make it substantial. So 70 to 150 words that you add to the conversation. Some of that I read because I have 4 classes, so I've read through 3 of the classes. I still have 1 more to read. Many of you are doing already, starting off really great. You are really either asking questions or you're saying, hey, I learned this in another course. Have you tried this? So things like that where you're keeping the conversation going. The best way to also get that substantial response is by, when you say, hey, I read somewhere that this is another strategy, cite where you read it. Cite the research. Don't just take their word for it. Cite the research. And also on DQs, before I forget, you must cite on DQs. So for sure in your DQ answers, you must put an in-text citation. This is not about what your opinion is unless it's stated that way. But other than that, it should be, where are you getting this information? And I know if you're reading the material, because the study material really helps you answer those DQ questions. All right, so when you respond to a classmate, make sure you're sharing resources, research that includes citations or questions that you may have. Then attending a live Zoom, like right now, this live Zoom will take place of answering 1 or 2 of those DQ responses that you have to do. So it's not the whole week, because you have 2 DQs, 2 replies to classmates for each of those DQs. So this Zoom today will go ahead and I will give you credit for replying to 2 other classmates. Okay, so what I ask you to do is, when you answer your discussion question, for example, for this week, DQ topic 1, DQ 3, go ahead and after you answer it, reply to yourself and put in a comment in there that I attended the Zoom class. I actually will probably put that as a DQ question, and you just say I attended the Zoom class. Even I have your attendance, but it keeps it on LoudCloud as credit. So make sure that you look at that. I'll post it in the DQ as did you attend the DQ class? And then you'll reply to that, yes. Okay, so in here, the next part is, so this Zoom is voluntary. Some Zoom classes will be maybe a half an hour, so I'll only give you credit for one. This one, we have a lot to cover, so I'm giving you credit for 2 responses to classmates, okay? Answering additional DQs for participation. I always put in there additional discussion questions. Those count. If you answered those additional DQ participation questions, that counts as if you were replying to a classmate. So in actuality, if you do what you're supposed to, all the additional ones, and maybe attend the Zoom lecture, you might only have to just respond to 1 classmate per DQ.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So if we like attend the Zoom meeting and we do the additional DQ, or don't do the additional DQ, but if we attend the meeting, but then we do like all 4 responses, if like you felt that 2 of our responses were not substantial, would you just instead give us credit for the Zoom meeting? Or
yeah, well, these are the minimum. You only have a minimum of 4. So
right.
If you attend, I've had students have like 6 or 7 or 8, so they get the participation points no matter what, because even if they might not have a substantial reply, but they have 6 other times that they've been participating, it definitely counts. So
Okay.
The minimum is 4 of those participation, but that's why you have 2 replies, but many students do more than that.
Okay, I was just asking because sometimes I find it a little bit hard to give a substantial response without repeating myself from the comments that I've made on a previous post.
I agree. Trust me, that is why I'm offering all of these, because that is the #1 issue that I found as a student when I was in online classes. And then my students, that's the #1 thing. It's like, oh my God, how do I not repeat myself? So this way you can answer 1 response to a classmate and then go ahead and do the 2 additional discussion question for participation. That's 3 right there. And attend the Zoom. That's, for today, that's 4. So that's actually 5 different things that you participated in. Okay, so very good question. The other way too is look at the last little star here. It says reply or answer questions that either other classmates made on your post or even I do. Sometimes I will ask you questions, and the way I reply to your post is in the reply section. Instead of just reply, I put question from professor. Okay, or comment from professor. So if I put a question from professor, it's usually like, hey, I see that you wrote this information, but where did you get your resource? So now just elaborate. Oh, I got my research from here, or no, I didn't do any research, but now I found this article and it does support my point. So answer my questions that I ask you in your replies. So when you do your DQs, don't just answer your DQ and never check it again. Go back and check to make sure that either I haven't asked you a question or the other classmates have asked you something. Okay, any questions with this? All right, so there's many opportunities.
One more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Responding to someone else's comment on our post, does that count as like a response to a classmate?
Yes, okay. Yes. So that it definitely counts. As long as it's not a yes or no, and you're responding with some information. Excellent questions. Okay, so let me go ahead and go on. So this here is, it's a whole bunch of, looks like crazy writing here on the schedule. But if you look at this green one here, this is really the suggested schedule. If you respond to a DQ, not until, you respond to DQ 1, that's your answer 1. Then you respond to 2 classmates for that DQ on Wednesday. So that's the 2. You respond to your DQ on, that's not due until Friday, but you respond on Thursday. And then you respond on Friday to 2 other classmates, that's your 4. The issue is that those become repetitive, but if you see, those are 4 different replies. However, if you look at the sign-in, you sign in on Tuesday to do your DQ, Wednesday to respond, Thursday to do DQ, Friday to respond. That's 4 days. That's how GCU's LoudCloud logs your days. You need to be logged in 4 days. So hold on to your questions real quick. So you need to be logged on 4 days. That means that if you go in on the, I know that many of you like to get it all out of the way. So maybe on Monday you answer your DQ1, that's fine. But then later on that day, you answer 3 other classmates. That only counts as 1 day logged in. Okay, so make sure you space them out in different days. Let me see, on the video you posted last week, it said that you needed to go on to log in at 3 days, but this is one such.
Sorry, that was kind of answered right now.
Yeah, sorry if I did put,
no, that was my fault.
Okay, so yeah, so please make sure that you keep track of how you space out your time and log that in, okay? And the same thing with the additional DQs. If space them out, make sure that at least 4 different days you have done something on LoudCloud, not just logged on, but responded to a DQ or replied to a classmate or my additional DQ, okay? Questions, are we good? Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How does it work when we attend a Zoom lecture if we're supposed to log on for 4 days part of that week?
That's what I will put on. I'm going to, so that LoudCloud recognizes it, I'm going to put a DQ on there. It says, I attend the Zoom, 1, and then and I attend the Zoom part 2, and you'll know that those are for today. So
Okay.
as soon as we're done, I will put them on there with the deadline of Saturday. So you guys can just go in today and put boom, boom, I attended, yes. And then yes, that's all you have to reply is a yes.
Okay. And are we not
and I
allowed to
have your
post on
attendance here
Sundays?
as well. Go ahead.
Can we not post on Sundays then for responses or anything?
No, well, no, yes, you can. It's even though you have a deadline of Friday, you can, but you lose 10% each day.
For responses, not just DQs, like classmate responses for participation.
Oh, no, you can respond to classmates on Sundays, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great.
Because the cutoff, thank you very much. The cutoff is Sunday, yeah.
Okay.
So one more thing to add on that is make sure that if you, for some reason, because we are in this whole COVID mess, if you become ill, and don't send me notes because I can't do anything about it. I'm going to just refer you to student services. Send those notes to student services. They let me know whether you're COVID and they put those, give you the extended time. What I ask is that you communicate with me right away because these DQs are not like regular assignments where I can extend the deadline. With DQs, they close. So I will be in contact with me and then I can tell you how we could do those responses so that they don't close on you. All right, so let me go on to the next one here. So now field experience. That's the other one, right, that everybody worries about. So field experience for this class is 20 hours. With that, I am going to, all these links, any links that are on here, anything that additional information will be in the video announcement where I'm going to post this video. It'll be either attachments or links below. So this is the link here from GCU. And what they do here is they go, and this is in your Student Success Center as well. So for here, setting up practicum field experience, go through this. If you have not talked to your the student placements counselors, you need to get a hold of them. And it'll give you a whole different perspective here on how to do those field experience. So I'm going to tell you can go through this on your own. For me, I have attached this in the announcement and that you'll find either at the end of the day or tomorrow because I have to place this video in there. So this sheet is going to be attached. What you need to do is, this is what you need to do to keep track of your hours because this is going to be submitted with your verification form at the end of the class. So at the end of the semester, you're going to submit this with your verification form. So in this form here, if you have placement already, which I'm really hoping some of you do, you'll put the dates that you attend, the times. I need to know your teacher name and the grade level, the teacher email, the school district, and the school name and address. That's one of the things. And then from there on, you can copy and paste unless you're attending different schools. Field experience should be done through 1st through 3rd grade because this is early literacy foundations. Field experience, then here, whatever you're going to be using, the dates that you attend, which field experience assignment will be used for. So I know this is small here, but in field experience, A is 5 hours, B is 5 hours, C is 4, and then D and E are 3 hours. And then a quick little 50-word reflection. So let me tell you about field experience A and B and how you can get started on this. Even if you have not been placed, but you know someone who is a teacher, hopefully, like I said, 3rd grade or down, and if you don't, get with them and ask them, do you have any teacher friends that are willing to meet with me? Because field experience A is really an interview. It's how do they teach their students phonics? How do they work with early literacy? How do they practice these phonemic awareness? All of these skills. So go to field experience A, which is going to be due. It's assigned to be due on topic 2. Now I'm going to say this, and hopefully I don't have to repeat it as much as I did last semester. For field experiences, I do extend the deadlines because it is hard. It is hard, especially right now. It's a lot tougher. So even though field experience A is due at the end of topic 2, I'll move it out after it's due. I will extend those days, and when it's extended, I will put on an announcement. Hey, this one is now due, maybe in February or March. I don't take points off for field experience assignments to be turned in late. Okay, I just don't, because it's just, like I said, it's on a regular time, it's hard. So now with COVID, it's even more difficult when teachers are either in sick outs or are, virtual, or they're overstressed. But try to get your placements. You can call charter schools. You can call private schools. There is a list, I believe, in the student advising, in the Student Success Center. I will try to get that list for you and put it on there. But call your contacts if you know people who are teachers. Next, some of you might have children that are near you. So if you have cousins that are in that 1st and 3rd grade age, if you are a nanny, if you're sitting, those are possibilities that you could do the practicum. The goal for practicum is to give you that live experience. That's the number 1 goal. However, that doesn't always happen. Because of everything we're going on right now, placement's hard. So if on the bottom of this form, there are times where you may have to do some webinars, a video training, and then you'll fill out this bottom part. And some of you will have a combination of both. I see you have a question. Hold on, let me finish. So some of you will have a combination of both. I do have an opportunity right now that I am looking for 10 volunteers. I might be able to get 20. So if you're interested, please, it's going to be on the first come, first serve kind of basis. So this is why attending these classes on Zoom is great. Send me your information. I'm going to tell you what this is about. So this might be used for field experience. And the reason I say it might be used is because it's, if it works, or when it works wonderful. It's called Velo. Last year, we piloted it in here, and Velo is an online tutoring system that works with 1st and 3rd graders with reading, which is exactly what we're doing. The issue was that last semester, because this is a program that's used in the classrooms, when students went virtual, the company had a hard time trying to keep the students' privacy. So there was a lot of issues trying to connect. They hopefully have worked out all the kinks throughout last semester. So what we're doing now is we're not making it your whole and only, but if it works, you'll get your hours. And they start usually at 7 a.m. because that's when, elementary school usually starts for kids. They have a calendar, and you sign up for specific students you want to tutor. It's virtual. It's You do it from your dorm room, from your own home, wherever you're at. I will post the Velo video to let you know more information on that. And that will be on the announcements for field experience. Another possibility that I am also working with, and as soon as I know how many, I will open it up. And again, keep your eye on those announcements because it's first come, first serve. I partner with Isaac School District. The personnel there has been so awesome. Right now, she's behind because they're trying to get all the preparation for the 1B group of teachers that need to go get their vaccination. But as soon as that frees her up in some time, she's going to tell me how many practicum experience positions they have. And so as soon as those, you can, I'm not sure if they're going to be virtual or on site. It all depends as soon as she lets me know what their school plan is. Other than that, if it's any videos, trainings, or other than actual in-class experience, I will provide that for you. I don't want you to go look for it. Don't waste your time in that because I already have particular videos and particular information that will apply to this class. Okay, Stella, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, please ask questions. I just wanted to get it off, not to forget. Go ahead.
So what if we have a teacher that we've been working with and like she's the teacher that I've been like, she's agreed to mentor me through this process. She's taught second, third, fourth, and fifth grade over her 30 years of teaching. Am I allowed to interview her in regards to her experience during second and third grade, even though she's currently a fourth grade teacher?
Yes, that's fine. And if you have something like that, please definitely double check with me. I'm more likely to say yes because of the situation we're in. That's fine. That's perfect, Stella. You got it. Christine, did you have a question?
Yeah, sure. So I found that we have total 20 experience hour, and in the Lao Cloud path, we have they're divided into different topic and tasks. So I wonder if we finish the field experience hour at once or like separately. Would you like?
So what the field experience says, like for field experience A, it says 5 hours, but the interview usually doesn't take that long. So it all depends. If you could do the 2 days, you know, like 10 hours each day and you finish those, that's great, but you still have to have all those different tasks for the assignments. So the field experience A, B, C, and D, all the way to E, those are suggested ways of breaking up your time. Okay. So it's ways of saying, hey, take 5 hours for here. The reason why I say like A, take 5 hours is because if you were really in a classroom, you would probably go in and observe, interview the teacher for that 1 hour, write it up, observe and help, and get to and spend 5 hours in that classroom. But just as long as you have your 20 hours of observation in, and you get those assignments due, don't worry about like, oh my God, I don't have 5 hours for field A, but you have the interviews, just submit the interview and then do the rest in observation times.
I see. So I can do both, like observing a real classroom and do interview video.
Yes. You can, even if it's virtual and you're observing virtual, then write that down as well.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
You're welcome. The other thing I want to say too is in these, and thank you, Christine, just triggered this. With field experiences, the assignments are like you have to teach a lesson for E or D. Please just pay attention to the announcements when I say like, hey, don't worry for these, you can submit a reflection, because right now with virtual, a lot of teachers, first of all, even when we weren't virtual, some teachers would be like, no, I don't want you to teach a lesson, or I can give you 2 students instead of a whole class. So if you're allowed to follow the instructions on those field experiences, by all means do so. If you're not able to do that because the teacher's just like, I just want you to observe, then that's fine. you would just do your observation and write those reflections, okay? And that's why I want you to be very clear on how you're doing that. But just go ahead and always keep track of your announcements, because that's where I will put, hey, for field experience, hey, if you're not able to do this, here's the alternative, okay? All right, so I'm gonna move on because we have a lot to cover here. Let me go ahead and if you ever forget anything, you have another question, please go ahead and send it to the questions to the instructor. Okay, topic 1, assignment expectations. So now you're in a group presentation. It's a create 12 to 15 slide digital presentation intended to be shown at an elementary general education class for teachers. So I know you're probably thinking like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough time. You just set the groups on Monday. I will go ahead and extend the deadline to Tuesday for this assignment, okay? Give you this weekend. It won't be that difficult because you're working in groups of 4, so you should have contacted all 4. If you have a problem contacting someone, like by today is Tuesday, if they have not gone back to you, someone in your group decide to take charge and send me a private message with the name of the person you can contact. That way I can go ahead and contact them and say, hey, your group needs to get a hold of you ASAP. If not, I'm going to tell them to move on with the assignment. So in here, you have to do 12 to 15 slides. Number 1, title and reference slide do not count as part of the 12 to 15, okay? So those are separate. But in your 12 to 50 slides, you're going to describe the scope and the importance of reading education history in the US. Okay, so that could be a slide. Just here's where reading started, here's how reading was in the past, and now where are we at? Next, discuss the importance of literacy in K through 3rd and educational effects on students in their later academic years. So that could be that could actually be 2 slides. You can talk about why is it that it's so important and critical for students to be at grade level reading by the end of 3rd grade. What happens if they're not? So one could be, here's why it's important, and the next slide is, here's why if they're not, this is what happens. The next one, provide an overview of the Big 5 components. So the overview of the Big 5 components, that could be a slide for each one. And this is how you get your slides: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and text comprehension. They go in that order. In your slides, before I continue any further, on the actual slides, don't put so many words. Okay, just put your images and bullet points. In your slider notes, that's where you're including the write-ups. That's where you're including your in-text citations. Okay, so in those presenter notes, you need to be detailed. Giving me the history, giving me why it's important, giving me the Big 5 component overview, like phonemic awareness, boom, 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 pictures. But in the presenter notes, I want to know what phonemic awareness is, how as teachers do we use it, why is it so important in the foundations of literacy. And then you can go on to phonics. Next, phonics, boom, 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 pictures. And then let me tell you what phonics is. How does it build from phonemic awareness to phonics? How does fluency build from phonemic awareness, phonics to now fluency? And then vocabulary. What's the point of vocabulary in our reading, and what is text comprehension? And this is so important because these 5 components, this is really on your state test. If you haven't taken your certification for literacy, the 5 components are on there. And text comprehension, whenever I ask students about reading, even in your DQs, what are some issues with students with reading, it always goes to text comprehension. Well, I want students to make sure that they understand what they're reading. I want students to make sure they understand their vocabulary. But we really miss the first 2 parts, which is phonemic awareness and phonics. So they all build upon each other. So make sure you include those and talk about those in detail. The next one could be one simple slide. That's describe how the brain is involved in the big 5 components. You can actually, even if you're running out, like, oh my God, we have so many slides, you can even include that brain component parts within each of the slides of phonemic awareness and phonics in the big 5. So how does our brain function with that? And that's what I'm going to cover all in the lecture today, all of this. The next bullet point, identify and describe 2 intervention strategies. Now, I cannot stress how important this is. You must be really clear within each of those 5 slides. You can put this in the presenter notes. You can put in the presenter notes how the brain involves in each of those, and you can also put in the presenter notes, and I would even bold it where it says strategy, because that is in the rubric. So it says identify 2 intervention strategies per the big 5 components for struggling readers. At least 1 strategy identified per component and should be appropriate for students to use at home. So each one has 2. One of them is something that you're telling parents that they can do at home. And that is so critical, because you're all going to be teachers, and guess what? Your parents, no one gets a handbook on how to be a parent, but they don't go to school to be teachers. They're going to be their own profession. And they're going to come to you when they say, oh, my child's struggling with the letter sounds. What do I do? Well, here's how you can help them with their phonics. Here's what you could do at home with phonemic awareness. Here's how to help them with fluency. So give them specific strategies for home, and then one that you would use in the classroom. And then the last one there, include your title and reference slide and presenter notes. So make sure your presenter notes are pretty detailed. Questions? You're all good? Okay. All right, so now the big focus on this assignment is on the rubric. If you haven't looked at the rubric, look at it, because I use it to grade this assignment. So for that reading, education, history, provide comprehensive examples. So give me examples of important reading, education, history in the US. There's a lot of material in your study material on LoudCloud that you can get this. You can also use your textbook. Your textbook is great to provide this information. Literacy grades K3 thoroughly details the importance of literacy in grades K3 and examines its educational effects on later academic years with extensive professional insight content, is supported within relevant quality research. I'm going to let you go through all of this on your own, because I want to get into the lecture so we don't run out of time. But make sure that you really focus on this. Now, if you're working in groups, and you're working in a good group, you are going to check each other. Establish deadlines. If you know that I'm going to move the deadline to Tuesday, some of you might get it done before that. But if I say, hey, Tuesday's the deadline, right? I'm going to extend it. Then have a time where on Monday at 3 o'clock, you're all getting it submitted to each other and someone's going to turn it in. Now you all have to submit. Please, please, please make sure you all have to submit. Even though you're working as a group, you all have to turn it in. Okay. So let's say it again, you all have to turn it in. But you want to make sure that you are all in sync and that all of your presentations match, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick someone. I might go to Caitlin, I might go to Sydney's, and I just say, you know what, boom, let me see who's in your group. I'll grade one according to the rubric, and then I cut and paste that and you all get the same score. So check each other's work, check each other's grammar and spelling, make sure that they have the stuff from the rubric, but set those deadlines. Okay, so let's get started with the actual lecture here. So this is from your textbook. Your textbook gives you great information. So approaches to teaching reading. Why does literacy matter? So obviously in chapter 1, it's going to tell you why it matters. Well, literacy enhances your vocabulary. Think of all the words you learn just from reading. You're like, oh, I don't know what this word means. And then you look it up and then you use it and then it becomes part of your vocabulary. It makes children more observant. They get to experience like, ooh, what am I missing? This is what this book is telling me about, nature. Then maybe I'm going to be more observant to that. Help students make finer distinctions in their perception of the world. Literacy encourages more sophisticated ways of thinking. So it enhances our reasoning. It helps us to think, what comes first? What comes second? What is the possibility of something occurring? Those are things that happen within our brain because of literacy. It increases our awareness of language, how our words use. And think about that. When certain words are used in certain contexts, what do they mean, the tone, all of that. Increases our self-awareness and critical thinking. Our critical thinking is asking questions. That's really what critical thinking is. So making those predictions of, I think this is what's going to happen next, or why did so-and-so do this? That is part of that critical thinking. Improve students' ability to ask questions and learn new things. Definitely, you all know that if you've read any type of material, it helps you to learn new things, because you're like, oh, I did not know that. And as you're reading, think about how much you read right now that you're in college to help you learn. So with that, among adults, literacy is associated with. So now let's look at the overall picture now for grown-ups, right? Literate adults, better health, better jobs, higher income, more opportunities in life. How well do children in the US read? Now, this is part of what you can include and start looking in this chapter for this history part. In general, okay, so children in the US excel at basic reading skills, reading with basic understanding. US students do not excel at using higher order thinking skills to consider what they have read. So that's when you come in. What does that mean? That means that students can read, but are they really understanding what they're reading? And we have this K through first, students are learning to read. Second grade, they're still continuing to learn to read. And by third grade, we want them to read to learn. Okay, so we're learning to read, and then we are going to read to learn. So there is a great variability in reading success among students, often related to differences in economic circumstances. That makes sense. If you think about it, wherever the students fit in socioeconomic status, it's going to affect the reading. And that's sad, but that is the truth. I wanted to show you this here. So we look at poverty complicated learning to read, right? Children from low income families tend to have less access to books, less exposure to spoken language, and fewer models of literate adults who encourage the support of their studies. I have taught in Title I schools. I've had many, many amazing parents, but due to their socioeconomics, they either are working 2 jobs, or a single parent. And that makes it really hard to really encourage that student to read, or to take them to the library, or the language that they're using at home. And this is from September. So this is from this last fall. And I don't remember if you know the story. Some of you, I think there was I don't know if they're in this class right now, but there was someone from Salinas, California. And this is from Salinas, California. 2 girls. So not books, but technology. Here's these 2 little girls who needed Wi-Fi access. And what do? They go to the Taco Bell parking lot. And this is not just them, it's all across our nation, students that do not have access to the internet. And then think about how this is going to affect the students, the kids that you're going to teach, because by the time you graduate, you're going to have, whether you're teaching kindergarten or even the older grades, especially in the older grades, you're going to have students. I think of those poor kindergartners, like my niece who is in kindergarten, first, second, and third graders, who right now are in virtual classrooms. Many of them, even if they're well-to-do, their parents work. So parents working, they can't sit right next to them if they need help. So that is going to affect their reading scores. And why is that important? Is because, well, let me go through this. So social class definitely has inequities, right? And that affects it. And this is what's so important. Now, this is a little poster that I kind of squeezed in there, and we're going to go through it in sections. But right now, we're going to focus on that middle part. Within the same first grade classroom, children with vocabulary of fewer than 2,500 words may be learning alongside children with vocabulary of 10,000 words. Vocabulary at the age of 3, okay, 3, drives language and reading skills at the age of 9 and 10. That's unbelievable that what 3-year-olds are speaking is going to affect how they read at 9 and 10 years old, which strongly predicts high school graduation. So it's not about just, oh, can they read? Don't worry, they'll get there. It's about 3-year-olds impacting 9 to 10, impacting if they're going to graduate high school. And that also leads to even our numbers in prisons increasing. So here's this one here, once again, and this is, see here where the citation is, Hernandez 2011. So these are actual studies that were done. When they're speaking about 2,500 words, it might seem like a lot, but studies have been done where students with low income families usually will hear just simple words. No, stop, sit down, quit it. Where students in higher socioeconomics might get, oh, you're being silly, or you being shy. Words like that, where they're increasing their vocabulary. And that's really going to set them for reading in the future. So if you are early education, you need to talk to your parents about this. It's so important for them to talk to their child. Talking is going to help them in reading. That's why we read to kids. It's not just about let me read to a child, but it's the vocabulary they're using, the way that they're holding the book that's going to set them for success. So this is where we get this achievement gap if this is not met. So family literacy practice associated with children's reading success. If parents value reading, then achievement is encouraged. Think of yourself, that your parents take you to the library, that they want you to read. That means that they're looking for your achievement. Reading materials are made available. How many kids have books? Parents read to the children. This is already, these are questions you can ask for those kindergartners coming in. You can have a parent survey and just get a feel for your students. So reading for success, these are definitely say you can read. Small achievements are secret ingredients for confidence. And then story cards, using all of these different tools. How much are they talking? So now we go into the next part. What's the early talk gap? So research shows that the amount of conversation children experience during the first few years of life varies widely, creating early talk gaps. Okay, so early language exposure, in particular interactive talk, is one of the strongest predictors of brain development. So those of you who are early childhood, it's so important to talk to those babies, those toddlers, because that is really going to help that brain develop. We're going to move into what is a phoneme and phonics and phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. A phoneme is the smallest part of the sound, smallest bit of sound. Okay, so when parents talk to their children, they use those sounds. If you speak a different language, you know that there's different sounds that we don't hear in English. For example, in Spanish, we have the ñ, right? The N sound, ñ. And when we say, oh, that's a cute little niño, which is boy, niño. So we get those ñ sounds, or the R, the double R. In English, we have the I sound that makes that I. When we say big, whenever you hear a second language learner, adult or 9s and up, they'll say Big Mac. They say that I as an E. It's really hard to distinguish because the brain starts to hear those phonemes and starts to adapt them. And that's why when they're starting to read those phonemes and they start adding phonics, it's easier for them to get it. So the baby's brain develops rapidly between 0 and 3, building more than 1 million neural connections per second. So we can't underestimate how important it is for the development of the brain to talk, this oral language. So components of reading ability. So here's what we have. First, this literacy is not just reading. Literacy is reading and writing. So here you go with the print language awareness. That's the top one here. In this top one, we have to show the students how the letters are formed. If you are a kindergarten or preschool teacher, Head Start teacher, it's so important that you don't just let the kids just write. You show them from top to bottom how they form the letters, holding those pencils. So that is part of the awareness of how language is used. Word recognition and phonics, which sounds are being made by those words, the vocabulary, comprehension and fluency. So fluency is not, and we're going to go in this class, each one of these sections will be a topic. So this is an overall of the big 5, but the next one will go into phonics and then fluency, comprehension, all of the vocabulary and fluency and comprehension. But with fluency, really quick, just remember it's not about reading fast. Kids think that being a fluent reader means reading fast. It's about being accurate. It's about reading at the correct rate with expression. So that's those punctuation marks and questions and exclamation points. And then hitting that punctuation. So let's go on. This is just showing you an overall picture. So let's go into the big 5. With their big 5, remember that they are phonemic awareness, vocabulary, oral language, which is oral reading fluency, so just that fluency, phonics, and comprehension strategies. So we want to make sure that we have all of those: fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, phonics, phonemic awareness. In the flower, I'm pointing here, but in the flower, they'll go this way. Okay, they can go anywhere, but they do follow that phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and then comprehension. So many of you always refer to comprehension, but we have to have all of the basic components before we get to that one. Here they are in order. So we're looking at phonics, and this whole slide will be in your announcement as well. So phonics, relationship between the letter and sounds. And then phonemic awareness. By the way, all of these components are in your accreditation exam. So make sure that you really understand what phonics, phonemic awareness is, the difference between this. So phonemic awareness, the understanding that all words are composed of individual sounds. So phonemic is those sounds, the phonics is actual putting those letters and sounds together. Includes decoding and encoding. And we'll talk about that through the class. Vocabulary, how to introduce these meanings of words, how they can help your students develop understanding. We'll talk about that. Fluency, how to get our students to read fluency, what strategies can we use, and then comprehension. The 4 big strategies for comprehension we will discuss as we go through the topics. So spoken language development, and it's so important that you get that spoken language is so important. So think about here, this is birth to 6, phoneme recognition. And remember, phoneme is the sound. So at 6 months, kids are recognizing the sounds and they're really building. I will post, if I can, a video on the bottom of this lecture video that shows how the baby brain of a bilingual baby really can respond to those sounds. Attach it at 12 months, so at a year, now they're attaching meaning to words. And then at a year and a half, they're recognizing noun verbs. So run and walk, mom, dad. 24 months are recognizing other grammatical functions. So now I am walking, I want, whatever, I want this now. later. And then we go into that 36 months, most language activities move to the left hemisphere, and now they're really comprehending and making more predictions. Phonological and phonemic awareness and phonics. So this is a great way to look at these cards, make notes of these so that you really are able to tell the difference. Phonological awareness, the ability to recognize the words are made up of a variety of sounds. Phonemic awareness is one part of a phonological awareness. So think of phonological as a big umbrella. And then phonics refers to the sound of the letters. I think I have a better one than this one here. So let's go through this, the oral language at a core, okay? And that's gonna help us with dyslexia and understand dyslexia, as that is one of the issues that comes up to impede the success of students. Dyslexia is something that comes about that will cause your students to be struggling readers. So oral language at the core. You have phonemic awareness, which is those sounds. Can they get the sounds? Then you go to phonics and spelling, because putting those sounds and the letter recognition together, now we can spell words. Syntax, with this oral language, the syntax is how are we putting those words together to make sense? Vocabulary and morphology. So vocabulary, you know what that is. That'll be a word. So we have, for example, just, just so you know. And then morphology is when we add different parts to the word to change the meaning of that. So if I say unjust, it changes the meaning. Justice, justly, justify. So that's what the morphology part is. And then text comprehension and written expression. Text comprehension, can they understand what they're reading? Can they make predictions that are logical following what they're reading? And then written expression, can they write with expression, with meaning? So dyslexia is, and that's why I put this one with this slide here, these two pictures, because the International Dyslexia Association, they defined it as language-based disability. So dyslexia is a language-based disability in which a person has trouble understanding words. So it's not so much about just reading, but it's both oral and written language are affected. So the sounds and also their visual, the seeing of those words. So it's not just one reading, but also the oral. An earlier definition formulated by the Dyslexia Research Committee with the National Institute, they characterized by difficulties in the single word decoding, reflecting insufficient phonological processes. So having the problem to break those words into sounds. And that goes to students with reading disabilities. So any student reading disabilities, especially with dyslexia, students have the correct IQ. They're right at grade level, but they are not reading where they're supposed to. Their IQ and their reading ability are not matching. And there may be deficits. So let me go here. One, I put me because I am dyslexic. So I could tell you that I went through elementary, middle school, high school, all the way into college too, until I found out, like, oh, that's what my problem is, dyslexia. So it can show you that many people can reach all levels with dyslexia. This video is in one of your additional DQ posts. I think it was for last week, so hopefully you watched it. If you haven't, make sure you watch it. It's on the prevalence of reading disability in boys and girls, and they did this longitudinal study. So they studied kindergartners all the way until their 40s, which is amazing to do that. And they found that 1 out of every 5 kindergartners in their over 400 students was dyslexic. So what they're pushing for is, think about it, if 1 out of every 5 students is dyslexic, we should be in kindergarten or every year in school when they test you, remember when they used to take you out to the vision and they test your hearing, that we should be also testing students for dyslexia. Because also found, oh, I'm not gonna play the video. Oh, sorry. We'll skip the video because we don't have time. They also found that half of the people in jail are dyslexic. Half of the people tested in the Connecticut jail prison were dyslexic. Dyslexia symptoms and causes, there's an article here. I gave you this resource. So I will provide all of these resources because this will help you with struggling students in your presentation assignment. How phonological awareness mediates relationship between working memory and word reading efficiency in dyslexia. And then dyslexia difficulties, and here's a mind map. So they're having trouble organizing problems, can't find the right words. You'll see the stuttering. If I'm really tired, sometimes people will ask me questions. I'm like, I can't even put my words in order, and it's very frustrating. Whiteboards, when I was teaching in lecture, if I'm really tired, writing on a whiteboard is really difficult. So losing your place in the text, filing it back. So think about strategies for these struggling readers that will help them combat some of these issues. Okay, now, let me move on. Let's go to the brain function. Let me go. So English, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. 44 sounds, so 44 phonemes. So think about that. That's pretty difficult because we have letters that make different sounds, and it confuses children. So 44 phonemes. Let me go through this. Graphing. What is a graphing? Graphing is a letter or cluster of letters that represents a sound. So that's also in your exam. So here's the best way to remember them. Phonemes, you can hear them and you can say them. Okay, if I say ah, b, those are phonemes. If now I show you them and I say sp, oo, now they're graphings because they have their sound. You can hear them, you can say them, and you can see them. And then if I just say S-P-O-O-N, those are just letters. You just see them. There's no sound, and you don't say them. They're just letters. So there's a lot to take into the brain. So with phonemic awareness of phonemes or sounds in spoken words, we want them to isolate those sounds. First, we want to hear those sounds. K, ah, t. You want them to really break that down. You have to stress that. Blending phonemes. K, k, at. And usually we do it with the arm. K, at, cat. And they blend them together. And then substituting sounds. If I put a P instead of a C, what do I get? Can students then go cat? Oh, now you get pat. Deleting sounds. Take away the C. What do you have? At. Segment words. Okay, so you have k, at, and then k, at. So you can segment, onset, and rhyme. That's what this part up here is, or individual phonemes, and then adding phonemes. So what if I add an S at the end? It's cats. What if, all of this. So this part here, this is all part of phonemic awareness, just those little manipulation of those sounds. So here, I love this one here because it really was, and I gave you the source where you can find this, not just this diagram, but information. This will help you on your brain slide or on your 5 components and adding how it works with each one. Because right there you can see where phonemes and graphings are seen, where what each part of the brain takes each part of reading. So what part of the brain is being activated as students are reading. And our brains were not built for reading. So I know we're running short on time, so if you have to go, I get it. I'm almost done here. But I know if you have to leave, you still get credit. Our brains were not built for reading. Why we confuse B, P, and Q. Okay, so on the next slide, I want you to, in the chat, to type what you see. Okay, let me open my chat here, make sure. Oh, someone just asked, before I show you that on the chat, is there something you can implement in your own classroom to see if any other students are dyslexic or there's specific testing protocols about this? Yes, but no. So let me explain that. You cannot test for dyslexia because you're not certified. You're not a psychologist, and that's a specific test. As teachers, though, you'll start to do, the more research you do, you can start to pick up hints of like, I think the student is dyslexic. It's not the reversal of letters, because right now I'm going to show you why. Everybody always thinks, oh, the kid's reversing the P, the B, the Q, and the D. Our brains are not meant for reading. We have to train them. So what I say is that the more you research about dyslexia, the more you can pick up on signs, and then you can refer the student and talk to the parents about maybe getting them tested for that, but you can't test it specifically. Okay, you can't. As teachers, we stay away from that. And I'll explain more on that. So let's see on the next slide on the chat, tell me what you see here. So type in the name of this item. What do you see? Go quick. Yeah, right, t-shirt. Okay, so next one, type in what you see now. I'm gonna go fast here. The name of the item. Boom. So you're right, you're like, what? This is a test? Well, look, we see our brains are used to seeing this. This is a t-shirt, this is a t-shirt, this is a t-shirt, this is a t-shirt, but now this is a B. Why is this not a B? Now it's a D, now it's a P, now it's a Q. Our brains are not used to reading, so we have to really be patient with our students. And this is why letter flipping and reversal is not the #1 indication of dyslexia. It's especially with your early readers, your kinder first, second, and third, they're just getting used to this. So it's really about training the brain to see these letters and the sounds and recognition. So taking this into phonics, these letters now have different sounds. That is really the end of our presentation. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'll take any questions, and then I will stop the recording just in case. So any questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can just ask.
In my eDocs, I was given like a practicum fill out sheet. Do you know anything about that? Like when we'll hear back or anything? Or is that something from my field experience counselor?
Field experience counselor, I would say take advantage of trying to place yourself. And if I offer an opportunity, take it.
Okay.
Because they usually will place you, but I've seen it placed like the week before. And
Okay.
it's like, oh, you're struggling. So try to place yourself. If you have any contacts, get out there, network as much as you can. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. So yeah, check your eDocs too for those. And they're working as hard as they can. Any other questions on anything that was covered? By the way, and they say this, I've been reading so much about how they say this is a urban legend, but then I had a training with the Department of Education and Literacy where I got that picture of the t-shirt, and the lady said, and I've heard this all the time I've been teaching. And then when she said it, I was like, okay, I believe it. Prisons. How do we know how many prisons to build or prison beds? And she says that the governor asked at the end of the year, ask for the third grade reading scores. That's how they decide how many prison beds are in the future. And that's why we have that mandate in Arizona, and I think it's statewide for many states, that in third grade, if they're not reading at grade level, they're going to stay. Now, that's why now third grade, those of you who are special education teachers, majors as well, know that in third grade, it used to be that now we have students who need to be tested, but third grade, they have to now submit a list of students who are not at grade level, and they get tested for special education because of that reading mandate. Because third grade is it, it's not like we can't help them in the future, but it makes them, it starts to widen the gap. So it's really important that we teach our students as much as we can and catch those problems, especially like with dyslexia and the other reading disabilities. Get yourself informed, ask the questions, and really advocate for your students. You'll see they can express themselves a lot better. So if you see a kid that you're like, this kid is so smart, they get it, they're understanding, they can keep it in their mind and recall and say it. But when it comes to reading, they're really struggling, or when it comes to writing, they're really struggling. that might be a hint that you could do some research and see like, okay, let me see what else dyslexia, go into the dyslexia sites and get as much information from them to see about making recommendations to the parents. And you never ask the parents like, your kid has dyslexia. You never say that. You could say, you know, these are some reading problems. Have you looked at this? Have you thought about, you know, getting him tested? Remember, testing is not about labeling a kid. It's about getting them the help. Okay. Any other questions? So I will change your date on your assignments to Tuesday. Give me time. If it's not done today, don't kill me because I have another class, another meeting in a bit. Okay, so if you're good, you are all good to go. I thank you all for being here. And